Hello, everybody. This is Tom Carpenter here. We're doing a webinar today on people who are starting a new travel business. If you've been thinking about starting a travel business, we're here to talk to you a little bit about the things that you might want to know. And so let's just get started. First of all, if there's anybody who's tuned in either on our Facebook channel, our YouTube channel, or LinkedIn, if you could just leave a comment so that we can kind of see that you are actually following us, that would be super helpful. And in the meantime, I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm hoping I'm live. Let's see here. Okay. Thank you, Karen. I'm grateful that you're here. Okay. So let's get started. First of all, just to get a few preliminary things out of the way, I'm the managing attorney at Carpenter Law Group. This is where you can find me if you need to get in touch, if you have follow-up questions or anything like that. A few professional responsibility disclosures to get out of the way. This could be viewed as attorney advertising, so I'm disclosing that. This is for informational purposes only. I'm not intending to provide specific legal advice. By participating in this webinar or this live stream, this does not, or viewing the video after the fact because it will be recorded, by participating in this session, it doesn't create an attorney-client relationship between you and my firm, or between your new business and my firm. And prior outcomes don't guarantee future results. A little bit about me. I've been practicing law for quite some time. I have clients in the arts and entertainment industry as well as the travel industry. I spent most of my career in the entertainment industry, but at this point, I represent primarily travel agencies and tour operator clients across the country. And in addition to drafting, in addition to my law practice, I'm also the owner of a hosted travel agency. So in my travel business, I do the same types of things that you are aspiring to do in your own new business. So let's just start with this. You've decided to start selling travel. And I hear from a lot of people who are starting new businesses who are asking for advice. I think most of them are passionate about travel. I hear a lot, I've been planning trips for my family and friends for free. I figured I might as well make some money doing this. Some people are starting off just as a side hustle to make a little extra money on the side. And they're hoping to take advantage of some perks in the industry. And a lot of people are thinking about maybe having a second career in travel, maybe starting a retirement business that when they retire, they can move into it full time. People who are fed up with their stupid day job and they're looking for more flexibility in terms of where they work and how they work and what their hours are. And lately, I've seen quite a few ads on social media telling people, hey, it's a great time to start a career in travel. You can work from wherever you want, from a kayak in the middle of a lake, or ads that say, oh, here's your typical day. You fly around the world and send out a couple of emails and book a trip and meet with a hotelier. I think that is something that might seem attractive to a lot of people, but it doesn't necessarily represent the reality. One thing that you might not know if you are new to the industry, and if you've seen other webinars that I've done, you've probably seen a version of this slide, but travel is a high-risk industry. There's a lot of fraud in the industry. There are scams that people who are not familiar with the industry might easily succumb to. You're going to be handling client payment information when you book travel for people. They're going to be giving you their credit card number. And what you do with that credit card number, if you mishandle it, that can create a lot of risk for you personally. Chargebacks are a huge problem in the industry. A chargeback is when a client authorizes you to use their credit card to make a payment with a cruise line or a resort or a tour operator, and then later on they decide they want to get their money back. So they think that they're getting it back from the credit card company, and they tell the credit card company, I want to reverse those charges. There are scenarios where those reverse charges could wind up coming out of your pocket. And so chargebacks are a huge risk. You could wind up paying for somebody else's vacation, even when they take that vacation. Happens all the time. When clients are traveling, think about the implications of you've booked a trip for somebody and they're on that trip and something goes wrong and you are, across an ocean, in bed asleep at night. They're trying to call you in the middle of the night. Pandemics and quarantines shut down the entire industry. Terror threats and civil unrest happens all around the world. Natural disasters, extreme weather events are happening more frequently. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong when your clients are traveling. And if you book that trip for them, they're going to look to you for assistance. Supplier defaults and bankruptcies, this happens. What happens if you've sold a trip and then the cruise line or the airline suddenly declares bankruptcy, shuts their doors, leaves you holding an empty bag? And then travel is also a high risk industry because of the degree to which it's regulated. There are all sorts of compliance obligations that you're going to have when you're starting a career in travel, mandatory disclosures that you're going to need to make. And so if you don't know what you don't know, this can be scary. Fortunately, there is support. There's a lot of support, actually, for people who are starting new travel businesses. The big takeaway that I hope everybody will leave this webinar with is you shouldn't jump into the deep end of the pool if you don't know how to swim. Starting a business on your own, coming up with a business model that you think is really cool, and doing it without anybody else helping you and guiding you and opening a door for you into this industry is going to be really, really difficult. There are a couple different ways you can get started with support from others. You can become a sub-agent of an established business. We'll talk about both of these. You can find a host agency if you want to really be entrepreneurial and actually start your own business. But the important thing is you're going to want to find the right business structure for what it is that you're doing. And you absolutely, without question, do not want to start off as a tour operator. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between a travel agency and a tour operator later in this session. So let's take that first bullet point. Don't try to start on your own. If you become a sub-agent of an established travel agency, there are lots of travel agencies out there that will take people on and kind of show them the ropes. If you just want to sell travel, but you don't want the responsibility of running your own business, if you are maybe a stay-at-home mom and you're really passionate about Disney, there are lots of agencies out there that are focused on Disney and Universal and maybe a few other things that are taking on part-time sub-agents who sell to their friends and family. There are other full-service agencies that are looking to bring on people that they can trust to do a good job selling travel. But you're selling under somebody else's brand if you do this. You're not running your own business. You're an individual and you're contracted to that business, most likely as an independent contractor. It's unusual to see sales agents with travel agencies who are hired as employees. That's not as much of a thing. How much you earn is going to depend on how much you sell. So you're probably going to be an independent contractor if you do that. The entrepreneurial route is to start your own travel business, start your own travel agency. And you can do that with a reputable host agency. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to start your own business, you want to have your own website, you want to have your own brand identity, you want to really focus on the types of travel that you are passionate about, and you don't want to sell the other stuff necessarily, you can find a host agency. You'll get a lot of support for your back office functions of your business from an established host agency. Those host agencies will have established relationships with suppliers that you can access. And when you work with a host agency, your business is contracted as an independent contractor, as opposed to being a sub-agent where you are an individual contracted as an independent contractor. So that first route, becoming a sub-agent, important things to know. You are still signing a contract with the agency as an independent contractor. You really need to know what's in that contract. You should talk to the agency owner before you sign on with them about what kinds of support they can give you if something goes wrong with your business, what your obligations are, what your potential liabilities are. And you're not going to want to sign contracts with red flags. I'll talk about what some of those red flags are in a minute. The entrepreneurial route, joining a host agency, you need to keep in mind that if you do this, you are starting an actual business that requires investment. It is unrealistic for you to think that you can start a travel agency, even a hosted travel agency, without putting a little bit of money into it. You need to have the proper business structure. You need to have, and we'll talk about all these things, you need to have insurance for your business. You need to invest in having documents and policies drafted. And if you're affiliating with a host agency, you're going to need to spend money to join that host agency. There are usually fees, either annual fees or monthly fees attached to affiliating with a host agency. So you have some startup costs, but your host agency is still going to be providing really important support to you. So what does your host agency do for you if you are becoming an entrepreneur and starting your own business? The host agency is sort of an umbrella organization where there are hundreds or maybe even thousands of other independent businesses under that umbrella. And basically, you're leveraging the volume of your book of business with all of those other agencies, 600-700 agencies, 1,000 agents, 2,000 agents. The volume of that business gives you access to better commissions from suppliers and access to industry relationships. So in your new business, you may never have booked a trip with a particular cruise line. You may have never even booked a cruise, period. But if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I want to go on this sailing on this date, and I want a veranda stateroom, you might not know anything about that product, but through your host agency, you can step into that relationship, learn what you need to know so that you can sell that product to a client, and your commissions are going to be better because there are other people in your host agency that sell that cruise line all the time. Compliance with regulations. There are things called seller of travel registrations that travel agencies and tour operators are required to have. If you are an independent contractor of a host agency, you may be able to, if you are following the rules, avoid having to register yourself as a seller of travel because you can use your host agency's seller of travel registrations. Accounting and supplier support. This is key. I mean, the way it works is the suppliers pay commission. You're using the host agency's industry credentials to make bookings with the supplier, which means that the supplier, the cruise line, the resort, the hotel, they pay their commissions to the host agency. The host agency takes a cut of that. Usually the cut depends on your productivity, how much you're selling. The more you sell, the higher your percentage is. And then the host agency processes those commissions, collects them, and pays you on a 1099 because your business is an independent contractor. So support for accounting, you can see what commissions have come in, you can see what your sales are. That is really helpful. And also supplier support. If you're having a problem with a booking, and again, you've got those mature supplier relationships in that preferred network. If you need your host agency to carry your water on a particular issue, you're going to want to be reasonable about it. You're not going to want to make unreasonable demands, but your suppliers, have those relationships that if something's going wrong and you need help sorting it out, they can really be an advocate for you. You can also have a membership in a consortium through your supplier. There are a few different consortia that are out there, but by being a member of a host agency, those host agencies are often members of a consortia that give you access to an even broader network of supplier partners, support for marketing. support for education so that you can learn more. And so those consortium relationships can be really, really valuable. But every consortium is different. Some consortia are focused more on luxury travel. Others have a different focus. So which host agency, which consortium your host agency belongs to could be a factor in deciding who you sign up with. So here's how you find a host agency. Let me say first, the way not to find a host agency is to go into one of these travel agent groups and say, I want to find a host agency. What's the best host agency? That is the wrong question to ask, because first of all, everybody in there thinks that their host agency is the best. And it might be the case that their host agency is the best for them, but every host agency is different. The host agency that is right for my business is not necessarily going to be right for you. So here's where you start to look for a host agency. You go to PATH, the Professional Association of Travel Hosts. Their website is www.path4hosts.com. They have a list of agencies that are members of the Professional Association of Travel Hosts. And all of those host agencies have committed to a code of ethics that protects you from unethical behavior when you're dealing with your host agency. That is super, super important. That's not to say that there aren't reputable host agencies out there that are not members of PATH. But if you're starting with the host agencies that are in PATH, you are already a step ahead of the game. The PATH website also has lists of questions that you should ask a host when you're interviewing them to see if they are right for you. I would just recommend that you start your search by primarily focusing on host agencies that are members of PATH. And then I would cross-reference, once you've found a few that you think might be interesting, cross-reference what you're seeing on the PATH website with Host Agency Review's website. It's a really good source of information for people who are starting new travel businesses. I know the people who run Host Agency Reviews. They are fantastic resources. They're very thoughtful about it. Keep in mind, though, that the reviews are actually, in my opinion, the reviews are the least helpful part of host agency reviews. Because, again, everybody thinks their host agency is the best. It is rare that you will find a negative review on host agency reviews because every host agency has their advisor saying, my host agency is the best. Rarely do they give you substance in those reviews. But the other things in host agency reviews that they do Host Week every year, which is coming up, I think, where they have lots of major host agencies that give presentations about things like business development. You can find out information about their program on Host Agency Reviews. There are a lot of really good articles about running your travel business that are super insightful. And I'm patting myself on the back a little bit because I've written a couple of those articles for them. But I would start with PATH, and then I would go to Host Agency Reviews, and I would look at what you find there, and do your research. And those are the two best places to start doing your research. Beware of multi-level marketing agencies. If you don't know what an MLM agency is, or you don't know what multi-level marketing is, it is perfectly legal, but it also starts to resemble a pyramid scheme at a certain point. Basically, you're recruited by an agency, you're recruited by an agent to sell as part of their team. They take a cut of your earnings. The multi-level marketing host agency takes a cut of theirs. It is something that if you start off with an MLM agency, you're going to have problems because there's not a lot of respect for those agencies in the industry. If you go on any Facebook group for travel agencies and ask about what about MLM agencies, you will get a face full of negative comments. Be aware that some hosts won't take people who are new to the industry. If you are new to the industry, you might reach out to a host agency and they'll say, sorry, we only take people who've worked in the industry before. That's okay, because there are other host agencies out there that have programs for people who are new to the industry. so that they can give you access to supplier trainings, so that they can give you access to mentoring and coaching. So that's one thing that when you look on host agency reviews, there should be a notation under most of those host agencies, whether or not they take new to the industry. Remember, not every host is right for every new business. Again, if you go online and you ask the question, you're going to hear that every host agency is the best. Not every host agency is going to be right for you. You're going to want to interview the host agency. You're going to want to talk to them. You're going to want to ask a lot of questions. The Path website is good for knowing what questions you should be asking, but also understand they're also interviewing you. So when I started my business, we interviewed a host agency. We didn't realize that that host agency didn't take everybody automatically. So the decision is not exclusively yours. They're also going to decide whether they want you. There are some host agencies out there that will take anybody and everybody, or maybe they'll put you on a waiting list and take you eventually when they have time to get around to you. I would not go with a host agency that is not discerning. And I would ask them about it. What percentage of people do they take? What's their criteria for looking at you and understanding whether you're a good fit for them? And most importantly, when you sign with a host agency, you are signing a contract. That contract obligates you. It has legal ramifications, and you really need to know what's in it. So I think this is probably the most important slide of all of them that I have here. I might change my mind as we get to the other ones, but right now I'm going to tell you this is really the key to starting a business, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. Okay, I mentioned red flags and agreements. If the agency requires their independent contractors to be exclusive, then you are not a quote unquote independent contractor. You should be able to book through multiple channels if you need to. Frankly, it doesn't advantage people to book through more than one agency. It doesn't occur to most people to do that because you don't get any benefit from splitting your eggs into more than one basket. But this is really important if you feel like you need to transition to a different agency. If you start off with an agency and it becomes clear that you've outgrown them, maybe you're a sub-agent and you've decided, you know what, I'm going to go the entrepreneurial route. I'm going to leave my Disney agency and go start a business on my own. Non-compete clauses are unenforceable against independent contractors. You cannot tell an independent contractor that they can't work for other people, and you can't tell them that they can't work after they leave your agency. If you see those things in an independent contractor agreement, do not sign them. Period. Full stop. Because you really need to think about what's going to happen to your commissions if you leave or you switch to another host. Or if your host agency, not your host agency, if your agency decides to cut you loose. If they terminate their agreement with you for whatever reason, and you have trips that have not yet traveled and commission that has not yet been received, what happens to that? And so you're going to want to look at that in your independent contractor agreement, whether it's with an agency and you're acting as a sub-agency, or whether you are going with a host agency. This is the number one thing that I deal with when I'm dealing with clients who are switching agencies. There are all sorts of people who signed agreements that required exclusivity, that had non-compete clauses, and then and they're not going to get their commission because they don't have the leverage to fight back with the agency owner that's holding their commission and basically, stealing from them. So be aware of those things. Probably have an attorney review it before you sign it. The best form for your business. The three main business forms are a sole proprietorship, which is basically you're in business for yourself and you don't set up any kind of formal business structure. You're taxed as an individual. Your business is, because you and your business are one and the same, but you also don't have any protection of your personal assets from liabilities of your business. So if you are a sole proprietor and somebody sues your business and you don't have a corporation or an LLC set up, when they sue your business, they're suing you personally. Your assets, your personal assets, your house, your car, your retirement savings, all of those things are potentially at risk if you have to pay fines and penalties to the government, or if you get sued and have to pay damages. If you're a corporation, the good news is your personal assets are protected from liabilities of your company. But the bad news is you're going to be taxed twice. You're going to be taxed first as your business and then also as an individual. I'm not a tax attorney, so I'm not giving tax advice here. You should talk to your accountant about it because that's also a key component. But the sweet spot for most travel businesses, I think, is probably going to be an LLC, a limited liability company. They're relatively inexpensive to set up. You can be taxed as an individual. You have a lot of flexibility in terms of tax treatment, but your personal assets are protected from liabilities of your company. Provided that if you are a one-person show and you're incorporating as an LLC, you need to make sure that you are avoiding commingling your business assets with your personal assets. So you're going to want to have a separate bank account for your business. You're going to want to have a dedicated credit card that you only use for expenses of your business. Because if you mix and mingle, then if you get sued, you lose that protection of your personal assets from liability. The other side's attorney is going to be rooting around in your underwear drawer, seeing what they can get out of you. When they sue you, it's not going to be pleasant. So keep a bright line between your business and your personal finances if you're a single person LLC. And even if you're a multi-member LLC, keep that separate, but it's especially important for single member LLCs. You're going to want the right insurance for your business. You're going to need errors and omissions insurance. It costs money. It is an expense of doing business. If you are a sub-agent and you were selling under somebody else's brand, you might be covered under their policy, and then you wouldn't need to get your own. But if you're starting your own business and you're doing the entrepreneurial route, your errors and omissions policy is going to be important. Even if your host agency has E&O coverage that covers you, you're going to want to have your own policy. If you make a mistake for professional negligence, and simple human error happens all the time, you're going to want to have insurance. You might need to add your host agency as an additional insured party if you are a hosted business. There's nothing nefarious about that. In fact, you want the business that is supporting you to be covered by your policy if there's something that leads to a lawsuit that implicates both of you. I think even for the smallest business, $1 million in coverage is the lowest amount that you would want, even for the smallest business. Pay attention to the exclusions in that policy because there are a lot more exclusions than what you might expect. Don't just assume that you're automatically covered for everything and anything. For example, making a misquote, quoting the wrong date, quoting the wrong price, selling somebody something that was a misquote, that's not necessarily going to be covered. You might need a rider for errors related to offering travel insurance. So you're going to want to make sure that that you've got the right kind of insurance for you. If you are reaching out to get an E&O policy for the first time, one of the major insurers, Berkshire Hathaway, is telling a lot of travel agencies that they are actually tour operators because they lead tours, because they take wholesale rates, they take net rates and mark them up. A lot of host agencies prohibit people from doing that. But if you do a lot of custom tours and if you travel with your groups, according to Berkshire Hathaway, that might make you a tour operator, and you might need a more expensive tour operator policy. So you might want to check that against some of their competitors. Aon, which is AON. Hiscox has a discount relationship with ASTA. You might want to check with some of those other insurers to see if they are giving you a quote that is as expensive as Berkshire Hathaway. But if you go with Berkshire Hathaway, just know that the definition they're using for tour operator is not the same definition that courts use. There are different things, and we'll talk about what that definition is, because you definitely don't want to be a tour operator if you're just starting out. But if you decide to go with Berkshire Hathaway and they're telling you you're a tour operator, or the other companies, if they tell you you're a tour operator, then you need to put that policy in place because they're the ones who decide whether your claim gets approved. And if you fought with them about it and said, I don't care, I'm putting the wrong policy in place, you're not going to get covered. So Here's why you don't want to be a tour operator. If you are a tour operator, you are taking on a lot of additional liability. And this is, and I'll talk a little bit more about what those things are in just a minute. Here are the things that could potentially make you a tour operator. If you're traveling with a group, lots of travel agencies do that. They find an itinerary they really love. They take out the group space, they market the heck out of it, and they tell all their friends, come with us, we're going to Spain. And then all the friends and family go to Spain. That is one toe into the tour operator lane, but it is the least problematic. Taking net rates and marking it up, that is a problem because you're handling client money. Most host agencies are going to prohibit you from doing that. But you are then going to be responsible potentially for giving a refund to your clients, even if your suppliers, the tour operator, the cruise line, even if they are not refunding you. Handling client funds for things other than fees. If you become the merchant of record, again, you might be required to offer a refund, even if the supplier is not giving you a refund. And then bundling trip elements together and charging one price for it. If it looks like the client is buying the trip from you instead of buying it from the supplier, that's going to make you look like a tour operator. And the most important thing is do not white label your trips. If you are a travel agency and you want to stay in the travel agency lane, the leading court case is this case, Van Rossum v. Penny Travel. This is where your clients are going to say that because they didn't know who the real tour operator is, they had every reason to assume that it's you. And when your clients say that to a court, the court's going to say, yep, you're the tour operator. So don't white label a trip. Always disclose who the supplier is that you're booking. I want to talk a little bit, just very briefly, about documents, policies, and tech tools. This is another investment you're really going to need to make in your business if you are not a sub-agent where you're already getting these things from your agency owner. You're going to need to invest in booking terms and conditions. You have to have booking terms and conditions if you are a travel agent, especially if you're a travel agency owner. Because it's impossible to win a chargeback dispute if you don't have terms and conditions. Terms and conditions are contractual in nature. It governs the relationship between you and your client, and you can put a lot of things in there that are going to protect you. You'll probably want a client agreement because most people don't read the terms and conditions, but you can have your clients agree to your terms and conditions by using a client agreement. If you have a website for your entrepreneurial business, you're probably going to want to have website terms of use and a data privacy policy. A lot of people overlook the need for an advertising disclosure policy. So if you have a blog and you're talking about travel, and maybe you put up a blog post about, oh, I just went on this Disney cruise and I had a wonderful time and look at all the things on the ship, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you're also selling Disney cruises and receiving commission for that, the Federal Trade Commission has rules about bloggers disclosing when there's a material relationship between something you are publicizing on your blog and money that might flow to you. So advertising disclosure policies might be things that you need. You're going to want to have some sort of technology tool like a client relationship management system or an itinerary planning application. There's some products out there that combine these two things together, but it's going to be a lot easier for you to conduct your business if you've got some sort of tech tool in play. Those tech tools need to do a few things. First of all, you need to be able to create customized forms. You need to be able to transmit credit card numbers securely, because you'll remember when I talked about the risk, we talked about the fact that you're handling your clients' credit card numbers to make payments with suppliers. You want to do that securely. You don't want scrap paper laying around on your desk that could be stolen, and then somebody commits identity theft for one of your clients, and that is a huge mess to clean up. Having some sort of e-signature function is a really good idea. You really need to keep track of when your clients submit the forms and sign the documents. When did they agree to your terms and conditions? When did they authorize a credit card charge? Your tech tool should be able to do those things. I have been seeing increasingly more and more people are coming to me and they're saying, oh, I've got this opportunity to work with a bunch of people who live in Ireland. and I'm going to book travel for them. Well, there are some problems with that. First of all, if you are a US based agency, there are some suppliers that will not allow you to book people who reside outside of the US. So you don't want to spend all this time planning a cruise for your friends who live in Spain, and then only to find out that that cruise line will not allow you to make that booking for them. Your host agency's contracts with suppliers might not support you booking non-US travelers. And even if you can book them, if it's possible, the supplier might require that your foreign client pays in US dollars. And keep in mind that that dollar symbol is not only used in the US, it's used to signify Mexican pesos, it's used to signify Canadian dollars, Australian dollars. So if you're booking clients from those countries and they see the payment price with a dollar sign in front of it, they might not realize that it's US dollars. So that's a pitfall there. But the real reason that you should beware of booking non-US residents is because when you sell to people who reside outside of the country, residents of the EU, residents of the UK, you are subjecting yourself to the laws and the regulations of those countries. So in the EU and the UK, there are these laws that are currently being revised called the Package Travel Directive and regulations related to linked travel arrangements. These are incredibly complicated. I am not an expert on them. I refer people to lawyers in Europe when they have questions about how to comply with these things. But I can tell you that you might need an insolvency bond, which is expensive for you. You might be required to make mandatory disclosures on a specific form. You may be liable to give your clients a refund, even if the supplier is not refunding you. And you might have additional liability for things that go sideways on that trip. The linked travel arrangements, in order for you to avoid something being considered a linked travel arrangement, there has to be a specific period of time between when you made the booking for the flight and when you made the booking for the ground transportation and when you made the booking for something else. And so you might, it might mean that the way you're used to working with your clients in the US, you can't do that for clients in the EU and the UK. Super complicated. Brazil, if you are selling travel to residents of Brazil, Brazil requires you to have a physical presence in Brazil, meaning you need an office there. In Canada, if you're selling to your friends north of the border and there's a dispute between you and your friends north of the border, Canadian courts will require you to resolve that dispute in Canada. And so even if you've got language in your terms and conditions document that says any dispute has to be resolved in my own backyard in my local county courthouse, Canadian courts are not going to recognize that. So the simple answer is, I think for most new agency owners, if you're starting a new hosted business, you're probably going to want to steer clear of booking people who reside outside the US because there's just a lot more involved in it. There's more than enough business in the US for you. Focus on that and avoid the problems of having to comply with laws outside of the US. I want to talk just a little bit about some other resources that I think are really worthwhile. Because when you're starting out, you don't know what you don't know, but there are people out there that will help you figure out what you need to know. ASTA, which is the American Society of Travel Advisors, is the trade association for travel advisors and travel agencies. They are a terrific organization. They do so much to protect our agency. I am an attorney in the ASTA attorney referral program, which means I give discounts to on my hourly rates and on my flat rate work to clients who are members of ASTA. There are other discounts that are available if you join ASTA. So even if, but also be aware that it's not just about the discounts. They do a lot to protect our sector of the industry. They have a phenomenal legislative and lobbying program. They are deserving of your support. And they also have a program for people who are new to the industry on how to become a travel advisor. And it's a useful resource. You can download the booklet. I believe they even have a course that you can take. And ASTA is a phenomenal organization. They absolutely deserve your support. The Travel Institute is another organization. I am a professional educator with the Travel Institute. I've written at least one of their course books, and I do webinars from them from time to time. The Travel Institute is a phenomenal organization, and they have a course for new to the industry people, and it's a very, very good course. It's very comprehensive. It is going to be eye-opening if you're starting a new travel business, so look into that. I already mentioned PATH, Professional Association of Travel Hosts. If you're thinking of going the entrepreneurial route and looking for a host, go there, but also be aware that they've got some other really great resources there, questions you can ask a potential host, red flags that you might want to look out for, host agency reviews. Again, I think the reviews are the least helpful part of that website, but there's just so much good information there. The articles, information about a host that you're considering, the types of support they have, the types of programs that they have. It's a really good website, so go and check that out. And I also want to just give a shout out to a Facebook group, the Travel Agent Whisperer. Helen Priscillo is a personal friend of mine. She is an agency owner who's been doing this for years and years and years, and she has kind of shifted her focus from running her own agency to helping people who are newer to the industry get their sea legs, and she does a number of webinars for people that are really fantastic, and she also has a really supportive community for people who are new to the industry on Facebook. So definitely check those things out. So here's the thing. As much as there is risk when you're selling travel, when you're starting your own travel agency, don't be scared, because it can be a really rewarding career. It can be a really rewarding side hustle. It can be a really rewarding second act of your career. But don't try to start on your own. Start off either being a sub-agent of another agency where you can just focus on selling travel and learning how to do that. Or if you really want to be entrepreneurial and run an actual standalone business, affiliate with a host agency so that you can have that support from your host agency. If you are going that route, do your research before choosing a host agency. And whether you're a sub-agent or a hosted business, have your contract reviewed for the red flags. You want to choose the right structure for your business. Maybe you can be a solo if you're a sub-agent. That might not be a problem if you're under the umbrella of somebody else's business. But if you are an independent business, I think you're probably, for most people, that's probably going to be establishing an LLC. Invest in your business by getting your own errors and omissions insurance, even if your host agency provides it for you. Might not need it if you're a sub-agent. Don't turn yourself into a tour operator. You are falling into a pit. If you do that, that is not the way to start out. After you've been in the business for 10 years, if you want to be a tour operator at that point, you'll know a lot more about what you're getting into, and it'll be a lot easier. Start with strong documents like a terms and conditions document and a client agreement, and try to avoid selling to people who reside outside of the US. So I'm right about at 45 minutes. And so I'm going to put this slide up so that people know where to reach out to me if they want to. And I'm going to look at the comments to see what questions people might have. Yes, Wendy, this is being recorded. It will live on my Facebook page. It'll also live on my YouTube channel. There are other webinars that are on my YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and look for Carpenter Travel Law, you should be able to find it. What happens if a host changes their contract after you signed? That's a good question. So if your host agency needs to change their hosting agreement, you would have to agree to those changes in order for them to take effect. And if those changes are unacceptable, then you might need to find a new place to land. But exclusivity is not enforceable. and changing it so that if you leave the agency, that you won't be paid for existing bookings. And I when I draft independent contractor agreements for people, I don't put things like that in there. But I think it's all the more reason to make sure that you have an attorney reviewing your contract so that you understand what's in it. Advertising disclosure policies. Does it include social media? No, the Federal Trade Commission guidelines apply to bloggers primarily. So if your advisors have a blog, you're going to want to have them. You're going to want to have an advertising disclosure policy. I agree, Helen. Every agent should be an ASTA member, and you're very welcome. I know how hard you work to make sure that bad things don't take hold in the industry, and I'm grateful to be among your friends. Misty, there's my contact information. If you want to reach out, I'm happy to set up a complimentary consultation with you. If my calendar's backed up, my associate Brandon Taylor has been doing consult calls with people. He usually has availability on shorter turnaround. Sophia, if you are with a host agency, I still would not recommend booking clients outside of the US because you are subjecting yourself to the laws and regulations of those other companies, and your host agency might not be equipped to deal with it, but it's definitely something that is going to be a problem for you if you are not following the laws and regulations of those countries. Okay, well, thanks, Dawn and Christina. It's nice to see like my existing clients showing up for something that is not necessarily applicable to them, but I'm grateful for grateful to have so many clients who feel good about working with me enough to show up for things like this. And very Merry Christmas to you all. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa if you're celebrating any of those holidays, and best wishes for a happy, healthy, and prosperous 2022. If you're starting your new business, do it the right way. Don't be ready, fire, aim. But get out there, do it the right way, and make a lot of money. And best wishes to all of you for the upcoming new year. I'm going to sign off now, but thanks so much for being part of the afternoon and giving me some of your time. Bye-bye.